Hi, I'm Paul Duchesne and welcome to Mama Paul in the Kitchen. We're going to make a bagel with cream cheese and lox today. Now last week I made a croissant with a fried egg and ham. So I made a sandwich kind of thing last week. I'm going to make another sandwich kind of thing this week. I'm really good at sandwiches. And in fact, years ago when we got into the health food business, I originally made a brown rice and tofu sandwich, but that's a story for another day. So anyway, we've been talking about the different dietary regimens that I've been getting involved with over the years, and we started off with macrobiotics and we wound up with some raw food, Ayurvedics, food combining, a little Mediterranean diet and a little Alice Waters mixed in. And I also, at the end of last week, I mentioned how it's sort of good to break the rules now and then, especially with dieting. And if you don't break the rules, you're going to wind up binging out, which I've done a number of times. So for me, a bagel is the one bread product that I don't eat a lot of. The croissants that I made last week, I can eat them day after day. But the bagels, no way. No way, Jose. The bagel is using a high gluten flour that sometimes is reinforced with some just pure gluten. And that's what gives it that chewiness. Now, bagels they're good, clean. They're a clean product. If you have a wheat allergy, well, forget about it. It's not your food. But if you don't have a wheat allergy, then go for it. I have a sensitivity to wheat. Now, I don't have a wheat allergy. I have a sensitivity to it. And because I have lung issues, if I ate bagels every day, it would affect my swimming if I was still able to swim and we weren't in the COVID period right now. It would definitely, it would cut my swimming in half, literally. I'd be out of breath very quickly. So something like a bagel, I only eat maybe once a month. And so we're going to do it today. I'm going to make it today because it's really super delicious. I really love them. Now bagels, I get these locally. We have a local bagel maker, and these people make some absolutely fantastic bagels. They're some of the best I've ever had. Bagels are doughs that are put together. You put together the dough and they form it into a circle. One of the reasons why there may be the hole in the bagel is so they can run a string through them and hang them up in places. There's certain markets, I guess, in parts of the Eastern Europe. The bagels originated in Poland a couple hundred years ago, and they're considered a pretty Jewish kind of a food. In fact, I used to live in a very Jewish neighborhood in New York in Forest Hills, and there were a number of bagel shops around. In New York, people eat bagels. You don't have to be Jewish to eat a bagel, let me tell you that. You have to like good food to eat a bagel, so we'll go there. Bagels frequently have a little malt in them also. They add a little malt to them, and they proof the flour. After they form it into the dough, they add the little malt to it, they form it into the shape, and they proof it, meaning it sits out for a number of hours, maybe a dozen hours, maybe half a day or something like that. The bagel is then boiled and then baked. So they boil it for a little bit and then they bake it at a low temperature, which is good. Now, a bagel is not a donut. Remember, donuts are nothing but flour that has sucked up fat. I went to a food show once in Las Vegas, and we got there and they were selling these blocks of lard. And the block of lard that they were selling fit into the deep fryer, which were used for making donuts. So donuts are notoriously terrible for you. You could take cardboard and put it into that thing and it would taste good because of the lard. So forget about donuts. You don't want to eat donuts. Bagels, okay. Now, also the thing about lox is interesting. But I'm going to do first is I want to just, let's just open it up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the bagel and get it cooked, because I double bake the bagel when I make a bagel and cream cheese. And the really smart way, I think, to cut a bagel is not to cut it, but to fork it. So you fork the bagel, and I go around the whole bagel, pushing the fork through it. And what I'm doing is, if you cut the bagel, you'll get a nice smooth surface. And you can put something on that nice smooth surface, and you'll put your butter on it or oil on it or whatever you put on it. But when you fork the bagel, you wind up getting a tremendous amount of surface area exposed. And I'll show you what I mean here. So I fork the bagel all around, And so we see that, see, it's all the really deep little holes in it and granules in it, so there's a tremendous amount of surface area here. So when we put anything onto here, it's going to really seep into the entire bread and not just be on the surface. I found this to be, for me, the key with cooking bagels. If you're going to just have a bagel, maybe you just wanted to have it with some olive oil and tomato, that's fine. But fork the bagel. They're so fluffy and they're so light that when you do this, it just seems to be the natural thing to do to bagels. Now I moved a little toaster oven over here right next to me today. I'm going to put that in there, turn it on, put the toast on. I'm going to turn the toast up to a medium high. So we're going to toast the bagel, then we're going to take the bagel and we're going to then we're going to put the ingredients on it, and then we're going to re-toast the bagel again. So it's going to be the bagel with cream cheese, and I use Clover cream cheese, an organic cream cheese. We're going to put a little red onion on it, little diced red onion, not a lot. A little sliced tomato on there, not a lot. And the smoked salmon. Now I've been buying this particular brand for quite a while. It's Echo Falls smoked salmon, and this is really interesting about the salmon. Now, I've always been confused about a smoked salmon and lox. Now, if you look it up, it says all over the place that lox are not smoked. So what they do is with the salmon is they cure the salmon, meaning they have it in a salty brine for a while. Now, it could be even up to I think some of these get done for quite a while, 8 weeks in fact, a couple of months. Sometimes when they put the salmon in a brine and then they smoke it. Now the difference that I found between the salmon and the lox, the salmon is always hot smoked. So first it's done in the brine for quite a while, and then they take it out of the brine and they smoke it at a high temperature, at 145 degrees, for about an hour or so. Whereas a cold smoking is more at 70-something degrees, in the 70, 75 degrees, for a longer period of time, more like 18 hours. So the lox, which are real thin, fine, almost like paper, it's a different process. When you smoke at the high temperature, your end result is real flaky. So if you get a chunk of smoked salmon, it's going to be real flaky and break off. Whereas lox, the opposite, it's not flaky. It's smooth. It's real smooth. And this particular one is an applewood smoked. So I am slightly confused in looking up the definitions here, because everything said that the lox were not smoked, but clearly here they prized for its high oil. Brilliant red salmon is cured using only salt and cold smoked with applewood for a traditional smoked salmon with no artificial flavors. So once again, every time I open something up, I find a can of worms about it. So I'm going to give a little slice to the package here, and we'll open the package up. And I've been using both of these knives. I think if you've been following this, I've been using the chef's knife here, and I've been using my Wursthof vegetable knife. And in a case like this where I'm just opening something and I need a point, this is a better knife. But in general, I've been finding I really prefer this knife. I like the flat edge over here, and the fact that it has the long flat blade here. Moving stuff off a board, using it to scrape. It winds up acting as a spatula for me in addition to just being a knife. Okay, so we got the bagel, came out of the toaster oven. Oh, beautifully toasted. And now I'm going to put a little cream cheese on it. Now when I use a pack of cream cheese, generally speaking, this is not where you're going to be chintzy. Probably what I would do is maybe, I would do the whole package of this with maybe 4 bagels. And this is, I guess, an 8-ounce package, I assume. And I'm going to take a nice little chunk of this and put it right on the bagel there. And a nice little chunk over here. Whoa, sticking to the package here. Okay. Push that to the side. And so I got a nice hot bagel. I'm going to put the cream cheese directly on the bagel, and then we're going to cut a tiny bit of red onions. We're going to put that a little sprinkle of little red onions on there, and then a little slice of tomato. Okay, so I'm going to give a couple of swipes on at the 15-degree angle again, like we've been doing, and forming a little J movement. Straight down and turn it down, straight down and turn it down. And we'll do the same thing the other way. Whoops. Now, it's sort of funny, but I didn't particularly do a lot of knife sharpening. Never did enough knife sharpening, to tell you the truth, before I started doing this little thing here on the on YouTube. And since I've been sharpening my knives real regularly, because there's nothing more embarrassing, I think, than to pick up your nice knife, go to sharpen, to cut something with it, and it doesn't come out well, like little tomato. Much better. We don't need a lot here. Okay, well, maybe a little bit more. Okay, put the tomato there. The onion, I've got an onion that I already started to use, so I'm not gonna open up a fresh one. This was just used yesterday. I'm just gonna take a tiny bit of the onion, not a lot. The red onion works much better digestively and taste-wise, I think, than a yellow onion. The red onion seems a little bit more subtle. So I'm just gonna make a few little dices there. The dice is nice and small. And like I said here, like that, that's why I'm preferring the vegetable knife. It acts more like a spatula with everything I do with it. Yummy, yummy. Okay, little onion on there. Put a little tomato over that. Okay, we're getting there. And last but not least is going to be the salmon. So this is really, like I said, it's really nice salmon, and it comes in, it's just paper thin. This is paper thin. And maybe I should have, no, there we go. And we have little separators in here also. So we have little sheets separating the really thin lox. So the lox is notoriously thin and absolutely spectacular in flavor. You can smell the smoke. It's an applewood smoked salmon, and nice little paper. When they do these, there's a couple of brands out, and the other brands don't have these little separators, and it can be a real pain in the neck when you have this really thin salmon pressed all together and you're trying to separate it. You wind up getting it shredded and you lose more than you can shake a stick at. Okay, so let's put that in the toaster oven, and we're gonna, well, I'm just gonna get this other stuff out of the way, clean off the board. There we go. And we'll pop this in the toaster for a minute. So we're gonna toast it. So what's happening now is I'm going to toast it not as high. So it's going to toast at a lower temperature than the original. The original, we got the bread real toasted up real perfectly. Now I'm just going to sort of melt the salmon on top of the tomato and into the cream cheese. So it'll sort of melt it out, and it just turns it, I think, into a really way more yummy, delicious little meal from just an ordinary lox that hasn't been reheated. Okay, so while that's reheating, there was an interesting, while we're on the food subject, I talked about how it's necessary to break rules. So we're breaking the rule again today. This isn't normally what I eat, like I said that. And I always advise everybody, I've been, for years, I have screwed up so many fasts that I've been on by overeating after them. There's a saying that any fool can fast, but only a wise person can break a fast. And the reason I'm talking about the fasting is, well, it's the beginning of March, so maybe by the end of the month, maybe around the beginning of April, as we officially get to spring, we're going to talk about fasting a little bit. And fasting is really good. It cleanses your body out, but the big thing is you're not eating any food for a day, and suddenly you start to think about everything you haven't been eating. Well, by the end of 10 days, you can really be nuts. if you don't feel satisfied along the way. And there's a couple of ways to make yourself feel satisfied along the way, which I'll talk about when we get into the fasting. That was one little sidetrack I wanted to make about food. The other sidetrack was interesting. In today's New York Times, it turned out there was a really interesting article called Insight from Amazon's Children. Insight from Amazon's Children. And this was in the New York Times today. And the question is, all these kids around the planet are getting overweight. And everybody's looking at all these young kids and they're saying, oh, why are they so overweight? They don't get enough exercise, they don't eat the right foods. All right, we're out of the toaster oven. Ah, perfect. And let me put this on the plate here. Oh, is that, look at that. Look at that. And it went from a brighter red to a little duller color with the heating over here. It's just, oh my goodness, this smells so good. Let me finish this little wrap here about the children before I sit down and eat this. So anyway, they've been looking at this thing about the kids being overweight and not exercising and eating poorly. So for years they've been putting the two together, lack of exercise and poor nutrition. But it didn't make sense to a few people, so they started doing some serious research about this. And this one fellow goes down to the Amazon, and what they determined at the end of the day was that the kids that were on the Amazon, that were running around working all day, foraging and doing work, versus the kids who were sitting around in their houses not doing much, the urban kids. So the urban kids and the kids in the woods, they both burnt the same amount of calories every day. The ones that were running around didn't burn more calories, and the ones that were sitting around didn't burn any less calories. So it wasn't the movement that was determining the caloric, not the caloric intake, but the amount of calories you were getting rid of every day. It was the diets. And it turned out that they said that they were mostly within their diet. The children in the market town ate far more meat, dairy, along with white rice, highly processed foods, and a lot more candy, whereas the rural kids were mostly eating a lot of bananas, a lot of plantain, a lot of starches, and they were all thin. They weren't all heavy, overweight, and everything like that. The only conclusion they could come to that it was the modern diet that was making the kids unhealthy and fat, and it had way, way, way more to do with the diet than it did with the exercise. So as I mentioned to somebody earlier on the show, I mean, I can lose weight just standing there. I have a metabolism which is ridiculously high, so I can eat tremendous quantities of food and not gain half the weight as somebody who eats half of the amount of food. But the food I eat is 90% coming, well, it's 90% organic. I'm eating mostly organic food. I'm watching my diet on a general basis with a couple of exceptions here and there. And today's the exception. So let's get rid of that for the moment. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to just cut this and have a little bite of it because let's see how this just looks absolutely perfect. Let's see. Take a small piece over here. See how this one. I'll make these grunting sounds here for a minute here. Wow, this is absolutely spectacular. I haven't had one of these in a few months, and it was well worth waiting for. So I did this today. I just wanted to show you the other side of my diet. Next week we'll try to get back into more healthy topic. I'm researching the Ayurvedic quite a bit also. I'm trying to get my handle on the different foods that go with the different body types. And this information was readily available 10, 15, 20 years ago, and it doesn't seem to be as available today. In fact, I'm having quite a bit of trouble finding it. I've been down to the health food store. We got about 20 of their old books, and they're getting together for me, and we're trying to get the answers to which are the best foods for the different body types. As I told you earlier, I eat certain foods that are cooling because my system is hot, whereas you might want some foods that are more heat producing because you have a colder system. So that's the kind of route we want to get into. Why don't we do another health tip while I'm here at the moment today? We finished early. I'm not going to sit here and eat this in front of you. That would be really impolite. I've been taking this Aramuno product for about a year now. There was a doctor, Dr. Paul Petit, and he's got his company called NAPRODIS.com. And he makes this Aramune, which is a bunch of essential oils. He's distilled these essential oils and he's put them into this little bottle. Now, essential oils have a profound effect on you. And these are, well, in this particular case, he's using oregano, clove, pine, tea tree, lavender, lemon, eucalyptus, rosemary, peppermint, a couple I can't pronounce, geranium, cinnamon, savory, and thyme. And the emulsifier that they use to hold everything together is the aloe vera, lecithin, a little vinegar, and olive oil. If you take an essential oil by itself, it's almost too strong for your system. You can put a tiny bit on your finger, you'll taste it. It's a little bit almost irritating. So you have to sort of dilute it when you take it. What I do is I make this one bottle of, I take a large bottle of water, and I use fresh spring water. And I tilt this over and I count about 50, 60, 70 drops. Boom, 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 little drops. And I'll use this every, for say a week. So maybe I'll put maybe a tablespoon or two into my aloe vera that I drink every day also. I drink this every day. And this I drink for, I have what they call gastroesophageal reflux disease, GERD, also affecting an old ulcer I used to have. Well, I used to take Prilosec. Now, the directions on Prilosec say don't take it more than 2 weeks at a time. So I was taking Prilosec, and you'd go back to the doctor, and they just tell you to keep taking it. Well, it didn't feel right taking it forever, and I did a little research, and I found out that it caused the degeneration of your skeletal system. And in fact, I ran into somebody who literally was humped over like a humpback. I mean, literally humped over like this. His spinal cord had collapsed on him, and he had been on Prilosec for about 5 years, and that's when it happened afterwards. So like I said, I did some research, and the recommendation was to take 4 ounces of this stuff a day. Now, I tried it a couple of years ago, and originally I didn't follow the directions, and I did maybe 2 ounces a day. Didn't have any effect. I researched it more, found that, 4 ounces a day, 4. Now, once I started taking 4 ounces of this a day, it started working. I was off the Prilosec in about a week. So I take this, I put 4 ounces in a glass, and then what I'll do is I'll cut it with the Aramune that I take, and I'll add that in like so. And that's it's a little bit tart. The aloe vera is pretty tart, but the Aramune is completely, you don't notice it's there at all. You don't feel any sharp taste from it. And I do this every day, and I haven't, like I said, I spend maybe, and this is the Aloe Gold. It's a really good brand, and this is the concentrate. So it's pretty strong. And I get one of these bottles about once a month. So it costs me about the same to take this as it does to take the Prilosec, maybe a little more. But my body is reacting way better to it than it ever did to the Prilosec. So we did some healthy things over here. We did some fun things over here. Remember, the taste of food is the most important aspect of the food you take in. If you don't like what you're eating, you're not going to keep eating it. It's as simple as that. You're going to push it away. You're not going to eat it. You're not going to finish it. If you like what you're eating, if it looks good, it tastes good, it smells good, then it's going to be for you. And a little bit of rule breaking, like I said, on a regular basis keeps you in a much more steady environment. Alrighty, well, we did almost a half hour. Peace, patience, and we'll see you as soon as we can. Thank you. Thanks for joining.